Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Clocked In with the Press, hosted at Altman Studios in Brentwood, California. In this podcast, we highlight members and organizations in the community that deserve your attention, as well as cover top news stories of East County. Not everything stated in this podcast is supported by or reflects the beliefs of the press. If you'd like to share your thoughts on the show, you can do so through our Twitter or Instagram at PressClockedIn, or on Facebook at thepress.net. This is today's host, Jacob Menez, filling in for Caitlin Gleason, who lost her voice, and I'm clocking in. For the story of the day, we get to talk to one of the people who runs Throw Me a Bone Dog Rescue, a local nonprofit organization that specializes in dog fostering. Here to speak today is Cindy Ott-Bales. How are you, Cindy?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
So tell me a little bit about Throw Me a Bone. How did you guys get started?
Oh gosh, that's a long story. I myself have been in rescue for about 20 years. And, some rescues, they fluctuate, they go up and down, they have changes in people that run it. And it came a point where I decided, well, the way the one that I was involved with was going wasn't exactly feeling great. So we decided to branch out and do our own.
And how long ago was that?
It was 10 years ago. This is our anniversary this year. Yep.
So what got you started in dog rescue to begin with, with that first rescue?
Well, do you want the actual story?
Absolutely.
Okay. We had been looking for a dog for one of my children, and I happened to be looking online, and I saw there was a dog at a foster home with a rescue that was located in Oakley at the time. And we showed up at the house a little too late. That dog had been adopted, but when we walked in, I have 4 children, and my 4 children are all tall. We walked in, and it was myself, my husband, who's 6'4", and then our children that were all 5'8" and above. And their jaws dropped, and they kept watching us file through the door, and they said, "Hey, do you think you could help us move some things?" So while my kids went and helped move some very large, very heavy kennel panels around a backyard, I sat down and I spoke with the woman of the house, who was basically the dog foster manager. And I fell in love with the whole process, and that was it. I got hooked right then and there.
And I assume you guys were pet owners, your family were pet owners before that.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, our first dog as a couple was a rescue dog that was trained by the San Francisco SPCA to be a hearing dog for my husband. She had been rescued from a shelter in Morro Bay. And we went through a training process, and it was amazing. She became his hearing dog, and so rescuing was always in the back of my mind because she was a rescue dog. She had since passed away, and that's one of the reasons we thought, when we're looking for a dog, let's think rescue.
Right, no, absolutely. And I don't want to get too far off our main topic here, but what is a hearing dog? Seeing eye dogs obviously are something a little bit more well-known.
Yes. Well, my husband is legally deaf, and at the time we got her, we had very young children, and I was working, and I was afraid that he was going to be unable to hear our children, and fire alarms and the phone and other things that went off. And so through the SPCA, now I think guide dogs for the blind or canine companions took over for them. But they take and they train a dog how to not just notify you of these sounds, but they relentlessly come and get you until you respond to the sound. And so a person who is hearing impaired can be at home, and the fire alarm can be going off, and the dog's going to let him know. There's a fire alarm going off. The phone is going off. You've got a timer that's going off. There's someone at the door. It's a number of things they're trained to hear and then alert the person to that sound.
Okay, so almost like a middleman in that regard.
Exactly.
The sound of the person. Okay,
exactly.
Perfect.
So dogs are amazing. They are. It's amazing the way that dogs can. I could bend your ear with stories for hours about things that dogs have done. Yeah.
So I'm going to pivot a little bit more back into our main topic for it because I have so many more questions. That I could get distracted by. But so tell me a little bit more about Throw Me a Bone as far as you get been around for 10 years. So how big is the area of operation for your organization?
When you say area of operation, I'm assuming you mean like how far
right,
do we
just
adopt
the scope, exactly,
well,
yeah.
We, the way I'm hearing the question, we rescue dogs from shelters in Contra Costa County and the surrounding counties, so Solano County, San Joaquin County, Alameda County. I think that's Marin County, I think we've done once in a while. Sometimes we take in owner surrenders. And as far as adoptions go, it's about the same area. However, on occasion, we have people that are the perfect match for our dogs as far away as Nevada and Oregon and Southern California. We've even had a couple of dogs adopted to people that are bicoastal, so they spend half the year out here, half the year on the East Coast. One dog was adopted. They spend half the year in Silicon Valley and half the year in Paris.
Oh, wow.
Which is crazy. And then just this past year, we had a dog adopted by a man who's a Broadway composer. And he was out here with family during the initial shelter in place and adopted a dog out here. So now our dog is a New Yorker.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. He barks with a New York accent.
That's great.
But yeah.
He's walking here. So how big is the organization as far as how many volunteers do you have?
On average, we probably have around 10. We're not huge, but we don't strive to be. We just strive to do a great job for the dogs that we have.
Right, so definitely more quality than quantity in that regard.
Yep.
Do you want to tell, and I'm putting you a little bit on the spot here, what's one of your favorite adoption stories?
Oh, gosh, there's so many of them. That one is kind of on the spot, but I would probably, some of the hardest ones, let's put it that way, some of the hardest ones is when we get a mama dog that is, maybe she's extremely pregnant, or she's just had puppies.
Right.
And she could be really shut down. Because if you think about it, a dog is a pack animal, and it relied on its humans or other dogs to be its pack, and then all of a sudden it ends up in a shelter without a support system, and it's pregnant. And so here's a dog that comes to us shut down, scared to death, and in great need. And those dogs tend to be some of the sweetest and most grateful, I would say. So it's amazing to see them turn around. And it means even that much more to us because those dogs, they come to rely on us so much more. Finding them a best home is really rewarding when you finally get someone who sees the dog that they are and knows what they've been through. The other ones that are really great stories is like we've had a couple of dogs recently that have come to us that need amputations.
Right, yeah.
And people that adopt those dogs, it means even that much more to us. Can I add one more little thing about?
No, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, pick it up.
We have a dog right now that we've had for 7 months. When she came to us, she was, I don't think she's ever been touched by human hands before we got her. She's still, to this day, if you touch her unexpectedly, she'll yelp and she'll run. She's looking for a home still, but she is one of the biggest changes in a dog because now, whereas when we first got her, she would run, she'd go outside, take care of business, come back in, go in her crate, and that was it. Don't look at me. Don't touch me. I'm scared to death. I have no idea what's going on. And now she goes outside, begs to come back in the house, and wants to run around and sit on the couch. You still can't touch her. So she's looking for a great home where people are willing to just give her a little more time.
Right, yeah.
But to see what she was and where she's at now, that is really heartwarming. We're hoping and praying that her name's Dahlia. If you find her on our website, Dahlia is adorable, and she's a small dog, so she doesn't take up much space, and she loves her crate, so she'd be an easy dog.
I'll plug it again at the end, but does the website just hold you,
throwmeabonedogrescue.org, all one word.
And so for 2021, how many dogs do you think you guys handled in that year?
We handled around 180.
Wow.
Yeah. The year before was 200. And we just hit 1,000 total for the 10 years, so about 100 dogs a year.
And that's a pretty good number. I think it's a dog every 3 days.
Think so.
Just shy of 4.
Yeah.
So have you noticed? Has there been a difference in the way you guys have operated, in the way the organization has operated since the pandemic? As far as adoptions, I mean.
Okay. So really, things were crazy for a while. I don't know if you remember or if you heard, but I mean, there was a while when shelters were empty.
Right, yeah.
And people were scrambling to get a dog. And sadly, a lot of people, they would message us. I mean, we'd have one dog that we'd post, and we might have 200 emails in a day. And there's no way we can answer all of those. And that's just for one dog. If we had 10 dogs available, that's 1,000 emails a day, and we can't answer all of those. And then people would get snarky. And they're like, I emailed you. Well, the dog got adopted already. We had 100 or more applications in one day, and it just got adopted. Well, I was the best adopter. Well, I'm sorry.
Right.
I mean, we can only do what we can do. So at first it was really stressful, but then we just made a blanket email reply, an auto reply that, hey, we'll get to you when we can, if we can.
Right.
And just bear in mind that we can only do what we can do. And if you look like a really good applicant for this dog, we'll be in touch. And that's it. That's all we could do.
So prior to the pandemic, were you doing, because I know some rescues do like adoption events or at Pet Food Express or at PetSmart or stuff like that, where like on the Saturday they'll bring the dogs to the store for people to kind of see in person. Were you doing any of that?
We were doing occasional ones. I'm of a mindset that most dogs, unless they're really bubbly personalities, most dogs show better at the home that they're most comfortable in. Puppies, you could, unless it's not really safe to bring puppies to adoption events because they're not fully vaccinated. But you know for a fact that when you bring puppies to an adoption event, you're not going to leave with any, or maybe one or two at the very end of that event. So you can bring puppies. If you've got a really bubbly dog that it doesn't matter where the dog is, they'll do well at an adoption event. So we might bring those. But most of the time you've got a dog, we don't want people to be surprised that the dog they thought was a quiet dog at an adoption event turns out to be one that bounces off the wall when it's comfortable.
Right. No, I agree with that.
Or vice versa.
Yeah, in my experience, the dogs, don't necessarily show the same at an event like that as they do in their home.
Yeah. Yep. So even though there are some dogs, we might bring them to an adoption event, but we'll still require the people to come meet them at the home before we let adoption go through. So for us right now, once a month, we're showing dogs at Pet Food Express in the Slanton Rat Shopping Center. Of course, yeah, just once a month. And that works really well for us because I don't want the rescue to run our lives. I want us to run the rescue. I don't want people to feel like to volunteer for the rescue, you're going to give up all your weekends.
Just sort of a time suck in that regard. Yeah. But no, that's good. I think that's great. So do you have, are there volunteer opportunities if people wanted to get involved, if people that are listening?
We need more fosters. A lot of our fosters over this past year moved, which it sucks because they were so good. And then some of them just got burnt out because they were doing so many. And then some are just taking a break temporarily. And then others went back to work out of the home. So they were working from home. Now they're working back in the office. So they can't do as much as they did. They're still good people. They're still willing to foster on occasion. But right now we're down to about 2 people fostering, ready to foster right now. And the shelters are desperate.
And of course, having only a couple fosters limits the number of dogs you can take in, obviously.
Yeah. Yep.
So anybody who's listening who might be interested in fostering, kind of what do you look for in a potential foster home? Well,
we want people that are experienced with dogs. We don't want people that are brand new to dogs because then it actually ends up being a little more work for us. But if you know dogs and you're committed to opening your home for as long as the dog needs before it finds a home, then that's what we're really looking for. Because it's hard on us if you say you'll foster a dog and then after a week you decide you can't foster, what are we going to do with the dog?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, we want people that are committed to not just take a dog in, but make sure they're willing to stick with it until it finds a home.
There's definitely a level of patience that goes with that, just because there's no timetable on how long it takes a dog to find a home.
Right.
I think in some cases, my family fostered for a period of time as well. And one of the dogs they were fostering, I ended up adopting, just because, it was one of those ones where she didn't show well at, the adoption events. And I would visit my family and the dog kind of grew attached to me. So now she's my dog.
Yep.
So I'm sure that happens. Does that happen a fair amount with you guys as well?
Well,
back when we had more fosters, I would say.
Yeah, we've had a couple of fosters just this past year that have ended up adopting one of the dogs they had. And as a matter of fact, one of the dogs at my own home, that is, he's 17 now. He's one of the first dogs we ever fostered. And I tell people he's got the personality of a fence post until you know him. And I don't think he was treated well.
Right,
and he was at least 2 when we got him. And so trying to put him into a new home would have been just detrimental to him. And he ended up staying with us. Like I said, he's 17 years old.
That's a healthy age. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So what are some programs or events that you're looking forward to in the new year?
Well, hopefully just revamping and revitalizing our foster program. We got to take and look at what we need to do to recruit some more people, and maybe how to help out shelters. There are shelters that are desperate right now, and I'm pretty sure there are rescues out there that would help, but they're not necessarily geographically close.
Right.
So if there's a way for us to help shelters by simply providing transport, if we can't take the dogs in as a rescue, maybe we can transport for the shelters. I wouldn't mind doing that. And that would be maybe something that some new volunteers would be willing to help out with.
All right, so to that point then, so people that maybe can't foster dogs, they could help in other ways like that, or I'm sure you guys do monetary donations as well.
Yeah, monetary donations are always needed. We don't shy away from dogs that have medical needs.
Right, which is, yeah.
Yeah, and we have 2 dogs right now that we're still trying to tend to their medical needs before they're adoptable, and we've spent at least $5,000 total on just 2 dogs. And probably well over $25,000 on medical alone this past year. So anything anyone can do monetarily is helpful, but I would say fosters first.
Right, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, just that brings up the number of dogs you can bring in.
Exactly.
So what are some of the most common misconceptions about dog fostering or just dog rescue in general?
Oh gosh, dog rescue. I would say there's a lot of people that think that a dog rescue is greatly funded. And I think they assume that we operate very similar to a municipal shelter where we have kennels or boarding facilities that we can just take in a dog. Well, we don't. We can't. If you find a dog, it should go to a shelter.
Right.
If we take in a stray dog, we have to hold it for 30 days, just like John Q. Public would have to in order for its owner to try to locate it.
Right.
If it goes to a shelter, they only have to hold it, I think, 96 hours.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And then they can adopt it out or send it to a rescue. So we get a lot of calls that way, people trying to bring stray dogs to us. That takes a lot of time from us, and and then we have to educate. Do this, please. We can't take your dogs. People call us to see if we took in their stray dogs. And then when people adopt from us, they're a little confused why we might need as much money as we need for an adoption. But we're not funded by anything but donations. And so we've got to cover not just the cost of the animal, but every animal, we have to pay for insurance every year. So every animal comes with those other costs that we have to look at. And we have to make sure that our volunteers are not going broke just trying to keep everything handled. So that's a misconception. I think as fosters, again, the misconception would be that they can just foster for a couple of days or for a week and that's it. No, it's better not to have a dog go to a home for just a week and then be transferred to another home. Those dogs need some consistency and some balance in their lives.
Just so they have something a little bit more stable than what they've been going through.
Yep.
What would you say are the benefits, in your opinion, of adopting versus buying a puppy?
Well,
and I know that's kind of a hotly debated.
If you adopt a dog from a rescue or from a shelter, it doesn't matter to me where you get it from, as long as you're saving a life. You're in essence saving another life, because if you adopt from a rescue, you've adopted that dog, but you've also made room for another dog, in a shelter or in the rescue. There are so many animals. It doesn't matter what kind. I've seen chickens and turkeys and rabbits, guinea pigs, dogs, cats, you name it, at shelters. Those animals didn't choose to end up there, but they all need out. And people say, oh, I just want my dog to have one litter of puppies. Well, there are litters of puppies ending up at shelters all the time. Or those 2 or 3 puppies that the family couldn't find a home for end up at the shelter. Those animals deserve a life just as much as buying from a breeder. And that would be my reasons for you need to look at the lives that exist. Save the lives that exist right now. Don't be part of the problem, be a part of the solution.
I'd say, but with that too, though, there's some challenges to to a rescue dog compared to, one's basically a blank slate. Would you be able to talk about that a little bit as well?
Well, in my experience, most dogs that are rescued, especially the adult dogs from a shelter, yeah, you may deal with some issues, but what you see is what you get.
Right, yeah.
And most of the times those dogs, like I said earlier, they have been kicked out of their pack. And a person that accepts the dog and adopts it and brings it home they've accepted that dog that was an outcast into their pack. And I find that those dogs are much more grateful.
In my own experience, I'd have to
Yes, they are much more grateful and devoted to you. And it's such a heartwarming, good thing for a person to experience that it to me, that I would do that 1,000 times over. Just the joy of seeing a dog go from being lost to knowing it belongs.
Or just give them a chance to come out of their shell, absolutely.
Yep. So when people say they're looking for a puppy, it doesn't, to me, puppies versus adult, it's whatever you need in your life, but there are dogs that you don't need to go to a breeder. You can rescue dogs, including puppies, from a shelter or from a rescue, and you've saved a life, too.
So I'll go off on one more tangent here. So if there's someone who might be listening who has a dog that they maybe can't continue to, home, what are the steps someone like that should take to ensure their dog ends up somewhere safe?
Well,
assuming we have to talk about that unfortunate situation.
It is extremely hard right now. Well, for us as a rescue, our focus is on shelter dogs.
Right.
Because those are the ones that face the most imminent euthanasia.
Demise, yeah.
Yes. But if someone needs help rehoming a dog, there are a few ways they can do it on their own. There is an organization called rescueme.org where you can post your dog it's a national website. You can post your dog and it doesn't cost you anything. And then adoptapet.com has a website where you can post your dog as well. It's called rehome.adoptapet.com.org. I think it's com.
I think adoptapet is .com, yeah.
Yeah, so it's rehome.adoptapet.com. And you can post your dogs that way. Or if you reach out to a rescue, you might find a rescue that has room. You can post on numerous Facebook pages. If you just Google, or not Google, but if you in the search bar you put in rehome, you'll find pages where you can look for some place to post your dog. And Craigslist, I don't promote Craigslist, but there are a number of ways. My first thought and my recommendation to anyone who has any kind of animals, have a plan for your dog.
Right.
If you think in the future, well, even if you don't think that you'll ever be faced with that situation, you should have friends and family lined up that can take your dog if you find that financially you're in dire straits, you can no longer afford your dog, or you get kicked out of a home, or you have health issues, or you pass away. You should have something in place for your animals. So there should never be, in a idealistic sense, there should never be a reason for you to have to approach a rescue or a shelter to take your animal.
And certainly in a situation like that, I'm sure the shelter would be kind of like a last resort just because of the nature of them.
Yeah.
On a lighter note.
Yeah.
So what do people, what do you think is more popular? Little dogs or big dogs? Are there favorite breeds in this area that you seem to see filter through quicker?
I would say they are both. It all depends on the person.
Of course,
I mean, there are people out there that are big dog only people, but I would say it's easier to find fosters and homes for small dogs. There are a lot of restrictions on, if you live in an apartment, there are a lot of restrictions on having large dogs. So that's another thing to keep in mind when you're looking for a dog to add to your family. What do I think my future looks like? Am I going to be living in an apartment?
Right.
And what kind of restrictions are there? So sadly, I think that it's easier to be a small dog owner. And then on going further with that, puppies are the most popular. And then second would be hypoallergenic dogs. I wish every dog that we ever rescue were as popular as the hypoallergenic dogs, because we probably get 100 applications for a hypoallergenic dog compared to maybe 10 for those that will shed.
So what breeds, I guess, would be considered hypoallergenic? Not just the bald dogs.
No, a Yorkie.
Okay, got
a
it.
Poodle, a Bichon, Frise.
And is it just that they shed less? Is that more the idea?
Yeah, they have hair as opposed to fur.
Okay,
so they
interesting.
will shed to some degree. They will need grooming on a regular basis. So you might think you want a hypoallergenic dog, but you also need to think about the monthly cost of grooming. And it's not cheap, and right now it's not easy to find appointments with groomers. Yeah.
That I believe.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, oh my gosh. I'll kind of turn the floor over to you for a moment. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about in terms of dog rescue?
Well, yeah, I mean, I always try to educate people that before you want to add a dog to your life, think about the fact that it should be a lifelong commitment. You're accepting this animal into your life. You should be there for it, whether or not it has health or behavior issues. Stick with it through the end. Don't bring it to a shelter or expect a rescue to take it when it's old and it just needs to be with you through its dying days. And if you've ever thought about fostering, I don't care which rescue you do it with. Reach out to someone. Now's the time we need you. There are shelters everywhere that for 2 to 3 years, they haven't had to euthanize anything. And now suddenly they find themselves in a situation where they've started to have to do it for space. And we as rescues, we're losing fosters because of the turning situations with people returning to work. We're losing fosters. We don't have the room that we did. And so we can't help as much. So if you've ever thought about fostering, now's the time. We provide food. We pay for the medical. We provide supplies. We provide support for you. We really need you right now. More than we need you, the animals need you.
It sounds like a good time for our call to action here. So how can people get involved? As far as, can they follow you on Facebook? What social medias are there?
We're
website?
on Facebook. I never remember exactly how to do the address. It's just Throw Me a Bone Dog Rescue on Facebook. I said earlier, throwmeabonedogrescue.org, and I never remember. Our Facebook connects to our Instagram.
Okay.
So
like people can go on there and see some nice pictures of cute dogs.
Yeah.
Even if they're not looking to adopt, it just brightens your day a little bit, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So as we continue on into 2022, it's important that we remember that not just people need help, but animals too. If you'd like to get involved in Throw Me a Bone Dog Rescue or any other organization that has been featured on our show, you can check out the link tree on our Instagram at PressClockedIn or message us on Twitter at the same handle. Before I end the interview, Cindy, was there anything else you wanted to share?
I think I've covered most of it.
No, it's terrific. I mean, that's the best version of that, I think. With that in mind, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. I really appreciate it.
Oh, and I appreciate you as well.
That's it for today's episode, everybody, of Clocked In with the Press. I appreciate all of you for taking the time to tune in. If you'd like to stay up to date on the latest Contra Costa County happenings, you can do so on Twitter and Instagram at PressClockedIn or on Facebook at thepress.net. You can also check out our website at www.thepress.net. That's all I've got for you today. I'll see you next episode. This is Jake Menez, clocking out.